Hey guys, welcome to the Sue Sponte podcast. I'm Ken Harper, and today with me is Otis McGregor. Otis McGregor runs and owns Tribe and Purpose. He was in the military for 25 years, 17 years in Special Forces. He retired in 2009 as Lieutenant Colonel. Otis, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. It's great to be here, Ken, and good to see you again.
Yeah. What was your basis, like your premise behind opening Tribe and Purpose? I know you had opened a couple other things prior to
hmm
that, but what was the purpose behind that?
I was, we'll take it a little bit further back. So, my first job out of the Army didn't go well, but I made some great connections, and one of the guys said, "You should just start a consulting business and come work for me as a consultant." I said, "Sure, good deal." And I did that, and as I think I've shared the story many times before, I bounced between companies during this first 7 years after I retired. I'd work for a little bit, get tired of that company, and walk out the door, quit, and then I'd consult again for a while, and then I'd do the same thing over again. I just kept repeating the cycle for about 7 years. I thought that's what life was supposed to be like. And then I finally got some clarity in what it was I was supposed to be doing, and that's helping other people succeed. And so I took what was then a consulting business, business development consulting business called LTO Enterprises, and I'll share with you a real quick sidebar on where LTO came from. Uh, when I was in Germany and Facebook was first becoming a thing, my kids created a Facebook page called Listen to Otis. And they would grab some dad quotes, and I think it's probably still there. I don't know if anybody ever took it down. They put a handful of quotes on there, stuff like that. Well, when it was time for me to start a business, I was like, crap, I don't know what to name it. This is silly. How would I name anything that's worth anything? My wife goes, "You should name it Listen to Otis, because that's what they're hiring you to do is listen to Otis." I was like, I can't name a business Listen to Otis. That's nobody's gonna hire. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Listen to Otis is LTO. And LTO stands for Leadership Training and Operations. And I said, there we go. And then I put the big word, which makes it sound very important, behind it, enterprises. So I had LTO Enterprises. Sounds like this big giant corporation, right? Just me. uh, but when I shifted to executive coaching, I kept it the same name. And I met a guy, and he and I became really good friends. We talked damn near like every Sunday afternoon for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm sure my wife was wondering what in the world, because we had never met in person. It was one of those LinkedIn sort of connections.
Yeah,
You have a couple of conversations in the DM. It's like, hey man, here's my number. Give me a shout. And the next thing you know, you're talking to the guy every 2 weeks. Well, he's a branding expert, Ethan Fialco. He's a great guy, huge, super smart in his industry of branding. And one day he and I were talking. He's like, "Your brand sucks." I'm like, "Well, thank you, thank you." It's like your company name says nothing about what you do. The logo, this, that, it just all sucks, man. We need to fix it. I'm like, okay, Mr. Branding expert, tell me what that means. And we spent probably another, I don't know, 4 or 5 calls just talking more and more and more and more. And then one day, all of a sudden, it just came to both of us almost at the exact same time. It was really kind of a cool epiphany thing. It's like, what about Tribe and Purpose? Because in Special Forces and Green Berets, we've talked about tribes all the time. That's one of the things that, you go back to the early history of Green Berets in Vietnam and dealing with the Montagnard tribes. And you look at the tribes in northern Iraq, and you look at the tribes in Afghanistan, and then back into Iraq, and all these sort of things, and dealing with tribes. And we even started to refer to when I was at NATO SOF, refer to the Special Operations Community operating in Afghanistan as different tribes. The NATO tribe, the JSOC tribe, the Green Berets, all these, the just sort of all those sort of tribes. And I was like, holy crap, that's it. And then the purpose came in with, when you join the military, you have a clear, intentional purpose. You know what you're joining for, and everybody around you knows why they're there. They have a purpose, the mission. And that, we put those two together, and we rebranded Tribe and Purpose to Tribe and Purpose 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And yeah, it just fits. It's natural. You tell somebody LTO Enterprise, they're like, what's that? You tell somebody Tribe and Purpose, they're like, oh man, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So yeah, it's a great, I'm very happy with the brand. I love it. Proud of it. And I'm a hat guy, so you always see me with the hat. So it's, yeah, that's where it all came from, and it fits because that's who I am. I have my tribe. I love the concept of the tribe. I was just talking with a good friend of mine over the weekend about tribes and creating a men's leadership tribe, and what's that like, and how to, when you go back to true tribal lifestyle, and having the elders teach the youngers, for lack of a better way of putting it, sharing the experiences and the lessons learned, and helping the younger members of the tribe be more successful in creating that legacy for the tribe as it goes on. That's, man, don't get much better than that, much more clear in who I am and what I do.
Yeah. So how do you, in that creating that tribe, how do you help soldiers transitioning out of the military kind of understand and take that into account?
Well, I mean, the actual how is through the Commit Foundation is one of the things. Then I also do a veteran business leader mastermind, but and the Honor Foundation. I almost forgot about them. Those are my three things that's the how. The theory that I share, I guess, when it comes to the tribe is, I tell them all that, one of the biggest things that you lose when you take the uniform off is a common purpose with common brothers and sisters that are all there with you, that you see every day, that you are there every day, working out with, eating with, training with, all these sort of things. And when you take the uniform off, that goes away, because the military is the most perfect organization for next man up. You are truly the finger in the bucket of water that when you pull the finger out, the water doesn't know the finger was there. And one of the biggest things you have to do when you take the uniform off is retain that connection, whether it is through a fraternal organization that meets regularly. You name it, from the VFW to American Legion to the Special Forces Association, the Ranger Association, all these sort of things, right? They exist as the fraternal organization. And the reason they're fraternal is they are gathering us all together. That's the purpose of it. So you can join one of those, or you can create just your group of buddies. Maybe a couple of you got out, or a handful of you got out around the same time, and you just stay in contact. One of the biggest things that guys get, the lesson they learn, is when they leave the team room, because they're retiring. Everybody's like, "Hey man, just give us a shot anytime. We're, love to hear from you. Tell us how things are going." And it's a month down the road, maybe 2 months down the road, and you pick up the phone, you call the team room, and it's like ring, 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 ring. Well, nobody's there because they all deployed.
Yeah.
Or the new guy gets the phone. He's like, "Yeah, who are you?" So that's a huge gap in our life because we've been, arm in arm with our brothers. We've been through the shit together. We've sat out on green wrap. You sat out and wherever and waited, twiddling your thumbs, going, "What are we going to do now?" Here we are, all palletized and rigged, ready to go, and we wait. Now we're going to break it all down and put it away, and then get to tell our wives that we're home again. But you go through all that stuff with your brothers, and when you step away from it, that leaves a huge hole in your life. So you got to fill it, or that will be a gap that you will wonder what's going on up here. You will be like, man, something's missing. I don't know what it is. Why do I? I'm hanging out. My next door neighbor's a great guy. Friday nights we hang out and chit chat, maybe drink a beer or two, but it's just not the same. Right. So you got to have that connection keep that connection with your brothers. It's huge. So important.
Yeah, that was hard, especially for me, because I think I was like the only guy getting out. Everybody else deployed and left me as I ETS'd. So does Commit send you referrals for guys then, or how does that work with your consulting? Is it separate, or would you say you like completely joint with Commit?
It's separate. So, I have my business, Tribe and Purpose. And as you could, it's really a 1099 thing is what it is in the business speak, right? So Commit, I'm a 1099 person, a consultant, to use that term, the 1099 term to Commit. So Commit, if Ken, you were to call up Commit, you would call them up, contact them. I think it's actually an email. You fill out a little application. Then you get to talk to one of our DVS, Director of Veteran Services. I remembered it. Very proud of myself. You get introduced to one of our Director of Veteran Services, who I know each and every one of them. They're all great people. They will talk to that person. Let's just stay on the Ken world. Ken, you'll talk to them, and they'll ask you some questions. Where are you from? Where'd you serve? Where do you want to go? They'll ask some general questions to kind of get an idea of who you are.
Yeah.
Then they'll look through their database of coaches, and they'll say, okay, oh wait, Ken said he grew up in Texas and likes to hunt and played a lot of sports growing up. Let's connect him with Otis. There's some common ground that he'll have with Otis. So then they do an introduction to me, and then we do through the Commit Foundation, we do 5 calls, 5 coaching calls, and there's some other program aspects that Commit does. It's a great organization to help guys find out what they want to do. Now, I'm going to differentiate because I know the Honor Foundation very well also. The Honor Foundation is a great organization. Matt Stevens, retired Navy SEAL, is the CEO, and he's a great friend of mine. It's an unbelievable organization, what they've created and the program instruction they've created. They are an organization that will help you get a job that is good for you. Maybe not quite the right job, but a job, help you understand, the whole thing about what's it like to get a job? How do I get a job? Who do I talk to? What does that word mean? All those sort of things. How do I translate my skills to somebody that works for the Seattle Seahawks or IBM or something like that, right? And they have a great network of introducing you to people and showing you how things work. They are great in helping you get a job. The Commit Foundation is great at helping you understand who you are. And that's in my book, that's the differentiator. And I tell everybody, go to Honor Foundation first, because they're going to give you all the tools to find a job, how to do it, right? Because a lot of guys here in the last 4 or 5 years are getting anywhere from 24 to 18 to 24 months to transition out now. A lot of guys do, which is, I'm like, cool. I mean, I didn't get that. I got fussed at for, not doing something the week before my retirement ceremony, right? But in that, when you have that much time, you got to take advantage of all the tools that are available to you. So you go through the Honor Foundation, unbelievable, well thought out, well executed program of instruction. I believe it's 12 weeks, where you get a coach also. And that coach helps walk you through all the classes. And it's a program of instruction. You got to show up for class. You got to do the work. You got to do the homework. You got to meet with your coach. You got all these requirements. And that's great because it sets you up to find a job, a job that is commensurate with your skills and experiences. The Commit Foundation helps you understand, why do I want that job? Who am I to have that job? And that's another gap. So those two things, I think they work really well together. And JC Glick is this new CEO of the Commit Foundation, and he's a great guy, and he understands that, and he understands the concept because he went through both. He went through the Honor Foundation and Commit Foundation as he was transitioning out. And my buddy Matt over at the Honor Foundation understands where they sit also. And I think it's a great pairing for our special ops community to take advantage of, to set you up for success. Because if you just go and get a job, you will have a gap in your life. I don't care what they will pay you. I don't care if you're making $250,000, 300,000 a year. If you don't have that community, if you don't have that purpose driving you forward, you will struggle. You will struggle to have happiness and fulfillment in your life. And everybody should live with happiness and fulfillment in their life.
Yeah, I think that's good. We had JC on here, and we've had Mike Greenwood on here, which they were both, exactly what you just said is what they said. They help you find purpose and all that in your life aside. They'll help you with the job stuff, but it's kind of like finding your purpose in the job, which that's one thing. Like, I know we talked before that you said you kind of struggled with for 7 years of like, I don't know what job I want to do. I really like coaching boys rugby, and kind of finding out that you really care about leading men to be better men. And I think that's one thing that's almost ubiquitous with Rangers is we've all been to, Ranger leader school. Like we all want to be leaders of men. And so finding that job or that career field that allows us to continue to lead and care for people is very important. But sometimes, you get out as like a young E5, you don't think about that or even know that. You being a lieutenant colonel, I'm sure you knew that was a little bit more of what you wanted to do, but still you had to find it.
Yeah. Well, it was, the Army was all if you count, 25 years, maybe throw in a little bit of cadet time too, 26 years from 18 to whatever the math is, 44. That's a pretty formative time of your life. And that was all I knew was, dress right dress, put the uniform on, move out to accomplish the mission. You work until you get done, work until the mission is accomplished. And, one of the things that SF taught me was, if you ain't got anything to do, don't do it here. And in that understanding of what it means, and it's the run hard, play hard, rest hard sort of thing. And when you step away from that, the rest of the world is nothing like that at all. It is work your 9 to 5, and here's a little leadership thing, and I think I'm blending in another conversation I just had with a client. But I think this is an important thing to understand is in a good military organization, the leaders trust their subordinates to perform.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we are successful, right? Decentralized execution. There's centralized planning, decentralized execution. That's how we are successful. That's how we've been successful as a military uh, throughout our existence in America. In the business world, business people, people in leadership roles, I'll call maybe they're leaders and they just struggle with this. They struggle with that centralized planning, decentralized execution. And it's a little bit of a trust, and it's a little bit more on the leader himself uh, having a. I'm sorry, I'm drifting into a whole nother subject on you, but having the trust and understanding in, well, what is it I want you to do? Because if I truly understand what I want you to do, then I can tell you how to do it. How I, what's the critical pieces and what's the outcome I want you to achieve, then I can let you do it. And you can come back and show me, here, I did it, boss. There it is. And I can go, cool. I don't have to sit there and supervise you. I don't have to. And this is another thing that the more I think about it, it's becoming a little bit more of a pet peeve is I don't have to have you punch a time clock because I've established outcomes for you. And that's the thing about the military is we had outcomes, right? I mean, yeah, our brothers over in the Air Force, look out, don't want to be anywhere near the gate at 16:30 because you'd think the quitting whistle had just blown at the factory plant and it was shift change. Uh, so a little bit different there, and Army somewhat too, depending on the unit. So it's not about the time you spend there; it's about what you accomplish. And as a leader, sharing, helping make sure your team understands what you expect them to accomplish is what's the most important thing. Sorry, I drifted way off the transition there.
No, that's good because I always like to talk about leadership stuff too. And I do feel like that is a very hard distinction when you leave the military, especially in a community that we're used to in the soft community, is that your expectation is whatever your directive was to somebody that you can believe in your mind that they will accomplish that task. I was actually just talking to my friend today about a similar situation in the civilian world. From a managerial perspective, you almost have to be better at knowing your people and understanding the bare minimum they're going to give you. Because like you said, punching that time clock is so important in the civilian world that if they if they get backed up against that time clock, they're just going to quit, punch it, and go home. And so really you need, to have a standard list of tasks that need to be completed each day. And really you can't expect people to go above and beyond because like you were saying earlier, anybody with their finger in the water could be expected to lead at any moment. And so, but in society, it's not like that. I might get a menial job that's like a mid-level manager, or even like me, I'm a truck driver, right? Like, and to go above and beyond that, most people don't want to do it. They just want to do the bare minimum every day. And that's fine. But as a leader, you have to account for that and understand that that's what your people are going to do unless you give them an incentive to go beyond that. And often there's not really any incentive because sometimes, people might not have the caliber to go to the next level, or they might just be fine where they're at.
Yeah. Well, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think the thing to understand in that as a leader is part of what your job, your role, your job as a leader is to convince your team that what they are doing is contributing to the entire organization's success, and that means their success. And sometimes, yeah, you're going to have some people in some roles that, that's just, they don't care. They're happy. Just leave me. I want to, I want to put tab A and tab B 500 times today, and I want to do it again 500 times tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. I get my paycheck twice a week on Friday. I'm happy. Okay, that's great. You know, we need those kind of people. You can't change them. You can talk to them, and maybe they're gonna do 505, maybe they'll do 520. But if they decide they are happy with where they are at and they don't want to do any more than 500, then you better just keep them happy at doing 500, because I'll flash this back to my time as an engineer in the Army. When I first came on active duty as a engineer platoon leader, it was right when the Army was getting rid of spec fives. I think they had already gotten rid of spec six. Maybe they were just getting rid of the last couple and changing everybody to hard stripes. Well, that's all well and good if somebody wants to be a leader.
Yeah.
If that dude has been in the Army for 12 years, and for 12 years he has operated a bucket loader and a bulldozer, and is a damn good bucket loader bulldozer operator, just because I take the E6 Spec 6 stripes badge off and I put Staff Sergeant badge on, doesn't make him a leader. And I had a guy that fell into that category in my platoon, and he was the senior E6, which made him the section sergeant for one of my sections, and he sucked. And I ended up firing the dude. Put him over in the motor pool, and he worked for a good friend of mine, my chief warrant officer, my maintenance chief warrant officer, Andy Tuthill. And Andy swore up and down, this guy is the best thing since sliced bread, man. He's doing the paperwork, he's getting the orders in, he's getting the parts, tracking all that stuff. It's because that's what he was good at. That was one of the biggest mistakes I still look back on. I wish the Army would realize that not everybody's cut out to be a leader. He was perfectly, I think the British military still does if you want to be a truck driver, then be the best damn truck driver. And you can be a truck driver for 20 years. U.S. Army is like, nah, you're done being a truck driver. You're a Spec 4? Oh, now you're a sergeant. Now you're in charge of the other truck drivers. Yeah, you could drive your truck, but you're not gonna drive it. You're the TC, and the other guy is the truck driver, right? In that whole thing, you're now a leader. You're not a truck driver. But all I wanted to do was drive a truck. Guess what? Now you're in charge. There is nothing wrong with somebody that is their life. And for anybody to judge them, they are the ones that are wrong, right? To force that, oh no, we really think that you're a great salesman. I'll stop picking on truck drivers, because salesman's another great example. The great salesman, your best salesman in your business. You're like, man, you are such a good salesman. I'm going to put you in charge of the sales department. You are now vice president of sales, man. Congratulations. And how many times I've seen those guys, and you can read many a business book about the same thing, a leadership book about that guy failing all of a sudden sales in the entire company drops because nobody's ever taught him how to lead. And really all he ever wanted to do was be in sales, was sell, because he makes a crap ton of money because he's damn good at it, right? Commission and all that sort of stuff. And now you put him into a salary role and he has no incentive. He spent the last 15 years in an incentive-based role. And now you take him out of that and give him a salary that's nice salary, but your entire department tanks because that guy wasn't ready to be a leader. Nobody taught him how to be a leader. And he didn't want to be a leader. He was just a damn good salesman. I think there's that whole aspect of people and where people fit in is such an important thing to understand as a leader, as a human. If the person, you should ask, do you want to do this? Before you go, hey, Ken, we're going to promote you to director of the day shift truck drivers department or whatever. You're like, what do you, if you don't want to do it, why would they do that to you? And I just don't understand why companies do that. And then the other thing that they do is when they do say, "Congratulations, Ken, you're now the truck driver manager. Go forth and lead," and they don't teach you how to do it. Yeah, that's we take that for granted in the military, don't we? You get trained, how to lead. In the business world, it says, "Yeah, get out there and swim.
Well, and
Wave your hand if you can't do it."
you're in it and you're around it. You got other team leaders by you, you got other squad leaders by you that can give you direct a hands-on approach right there for like a case study, rather than you might be a supervisor of Northwest sales and there might not be another one like you 300 miles away. And so you don't really have anybody to learn hands-on with. But it makes me think about, like, you kind of wrote about it in your recent article about like entrepreneurs, like having that entrepreneurial drive where it's like you understand the mission and you go after it. I feel like that's pretty rare nowadays, unless you really sell it to your management team to understand the mission and the purpose behind your company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what you have to do. A friend of mine, let's see if I can remember how he put it. Was talking to a guy in his company and asked him, "What would you change in how you show up if you own the company? How much effort you put in?" And the guy, of course, said, "Well, if I own the company, then I'd be here and I'd work on this and I'd do that." And then the question is, well, why don't you do that now? Why aren't you that engaged in the company? What is it that's missing to get you engaged? Because that's what we want. We want a team just like we had in the Army. That was when we were together, man, we were mission focused to accomplish the mission, right? Uh, and that's what you need in business to be successful. The successful businesses, the ones that continue to grow and have the right culture and support their team members, are the ones that the people buy into the vision and the mission. They personally see themselves in the company's mission and vision. So when that leader, the CEO founder, says, here's the purpose of the company. Here's why I created this business. We're going to do this. We're going to save lives in this manner. And here's where I see the vision. Here's the vision for the business in the next 5 years. And Ken, I see you as vice president of operations, because as we're growing, I'm going to move you and you're going to grow into that position and become vice president of operations, because right now it's you, me, and Bob and Sam. And Sam's going to be moving to, chief of the accounting office, or, all these sort of things. And I'm not just saying in the position, selling you on a position. That's one way. It's one way to help envision it. But it's like when you can start thinking about who you want to be in the future. I want the company that you're part of, that I'm in charge of, I want that to be part of your vision for your own future. I want you to see yourself, whether it's VP of Ops or the same role you're in right now. You just want to do it for the next 5 years because you're enjoying it. And it's a great culture and it provides you some stability in life and fulfillment towards your purpose, all those sort of things. Yeah, that's what your role is as a leader. And in the military, we didn't have to sell that shit because, you signed up for 4 years and you were given direct orders, because if you don't follow those orders, those awful orders, UCMJ and all that other sort of stuff, and then you bought into the mission, the higher, the when we're in the special ops world, the volunteer levels assure that you have bought into those roles and those missions. And that's the person shows up that way, as opposed to, maybe in a job interview, we're talking about it. And I say, "Hey, Ken, so where do you see yourself in 5 years?" "Well, Otis, I see myself in 5 years, in your job." you know, that old stupid thing that people do. Uh, but you truly, as a leader, you truly have to say, here's the vision and sell the vision so that I teach you to see yourself in that vision. And then when we have that, then we start to work as a team.
Yeah, and I wish that people were objective enough to say if they don't see that vision, they'd leave. You know, because so often, like there's people I work with now or in the past that's not their vision, and it's sad that you have to force people out when they don't they no longer agree with the vision, because if you don't agree, then you hold everybody else back. I mean, it would be like us going out on a mission and we all get off the bird and one guy's just standing on the LZ like, I'm not going. You know, like that.
You mean Apocalypse Now?
But it just,
Oh, you're too young. You're too young. Come on, man. When they're coming in with the helicopters and
I
they
don't know.
show
Yeah, I
that
don't know.
one. Oh my gosh. You got homework, Ken.
I got homework.
You're killing me.
I'm sorry.
All right, you got to watch Apocalypse Now. The
All right.
beach scene. And they're coming in lower than the rising sun, about a mile out. They turn the music on, and they're landing the helicopter. And there's this one private, and as the helicopter's landing, he's doing exactly what you said. I'm not going. I'm not going. And his team sergeant, his fire team sergeant, reaches, grabs a big handful of them, and just throws them down on the ground, and the battle continues on. So,
Okay, I'll take a note.
yeah.
That's my note. That's my homework. All right. Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But even like airborne school, whatever you want to talk about, remember the guy standing there in the door and they got to kick him out. Like, there's just, sorry, see ya. You're part of the mission. It's too late to say no now. But I work with a lot of guys that and maybe it's just an American problem nowadays, but there's like a sense of entitlement, a sense of, I deserve this even if I do the minimum. And that's definitely a big problem, not just in your own life, but it's a problem for whatever company you work for. It doesn't matter what company that is. But like you're saying, if you don't have that joy, if you don't have that fulfillment anymore to show up like you own the company, then you shouldn't show up. Like you should bow out. And if you're not willing to bow out, management should have the authority and ability to get rid of you, which I don't know what it is with society and companies nowadays, but man, they will not fire anybody. And it's like, it's detrimental to yourself. The more you keep these people around.
Yeah. Slow to hire, quick to fire.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100%. You know, there was a couple of years ago, it was in the business, all the business magazines and articles called Quiet Quitting. You know, calling people out for literally just what is the minimum I can get away with and not get fired. You know, that's a supervisor leadership problem. Because if you have one team member that is not doing their job, that means other team members are doing their job. And if you don't know that as a leader, you're not being a good leader, because the good people, the people that are doing the work and doing it properly, are being taken advantage of by the quiet quitter, who, oh, by the way, is stealing. I mean, you can call it anything you want, but if you are, you know, punching the time clock and then you go hide in the janitor closet for 3 or 4 hours and then pop up at lunchtime and go to a meeting and then you go hide again, and you're stealing, because somebody is writing a paycheck for you to do a job. And what's sad about it is there's a belief that that's not stealing. And that's, you know, you could take that same person and ask them, well, would you go into 7-Eleven and walk out with a 6-pack of beer? And they go, oh, no, that's stealing. Then why are you doing that here? Why are you showing up to work and not doing what you're paid to do? It's the
Yeah.
same thing. You're taking money. It's a direct exchange. I do this, you pay me for this, right? That's a direct exchange. But if I don't do that and I pretend like I did that and you pay me, I'm stealing.
Yeah. Yeah. We're trading our time for the company's money. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's a basic contract in life. Every day I show up at work, I know that I'm not getting to do what I want to do with my time because I need their money and they need me to provide that service for them. And that's just the basic exchange. Anything outside of those bounds, if they want me to work all day and don't want to pay me, they're stealing from me. And if I
Yeah.
want to take longer at work or do the wrong thing and still expect them to pay me, I'm stealing from them. So yeah, that's the basic contract. But yeah, you're right. A lot of people, they take advantage of that, and they also know that their bosses or whoever is too busy to hold them accountable, and it doesn't get done.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And those are the people that screw it over for everybody else.
well, yeah, because somebody's got to pick up the slack, and it usually ends up being the other employees, not the management person, because they just push it down.
Yeah.
And so what are the outcomes? So I know you said you do like 5 counseling sessions with the commit guys.
Mhm.
What do you usually like? What do those look like? Like how do you feel like you really connect with the guys and help them out into finding
Uh,
what they really care about?
yeah.
Is
Well,
there
real quick, it's the 5 calls. So the first call is an introductory call, and we do a story sharing. I share some of my story, uh, and I have them do the same because I'm a firm believer in the fact that life is managed, not balanced. And the better I understand them as a person, a whole person, the better I can help them. And the same thing, the better they understand me, the better they are receptive to who I am and what I'm trying to help them do and I'm passionate about it. Then our other calls will go through various things because one of the beauties of working with Commit Foundation is we call it meeting the fellow where he is, and which means that I don't have a program of instruction. I got a whole bucket full of tools and ideas and thoughts that I can share depending on the situation of where you are and who you are and what's going on in your life. Well, generally speaking, the second call is we talk about the ideal day, creating your vision for the future in 5 years. And from that, everything else can fall out because if you know what right looks like, then you can start to discover right for yourself. Everything else is left and right of what is correct. So if I know what I want, here it is. This is who, what, and where I want to be in 5 years through the ideal day exercise. Now, here I am today. Well, does this get me there? Does this move me to that day? Does this drive me off? Is this going to help me do that, get there? And that's the beauty of it is we work through that, everything from what does that day look like from I want to be able to, when I wake up in the morning and look outside and see there's 6 inches of fresh powder snow, I want to go get a couple of runs in before I go into the office. Go into the shop at noon instead of 8 o'clock or whatever, right? I mean, those are sort of things that you have to start to think about. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that you're probably not going to be happy with a job in Florida if your ideal day is waking up to 6 inches of powder and going for a couple of runs on a ski slope. That, oh, by the way, ought to be kind of close to you too, right? Because now, how do I get to that ski slope and still maybe go do some work? All these sort of things start to shape everything about what you want to do. And the other thing I help them do is understand that all the tools and systems and processes we used in the Army, the MDMP, the 5 paragraph field order, mission analysis, you name it, all those processes all work in the civilian world. There's no better and I can vouch for this in a number of different areas in a number of different ways. There is no better proven process than the MDMP and the 5-paragraph field order. Your job as a service member transitioning out is learning how to translate that information. Your thought processes, stick with those thought processes, but learn how to translate that to others. And then the hardest thing to do is to write that 5-paragraph field order for your next 5 years. If I know what my vision is, I know what my ideal day is, and I create a vision off my ideal day, then I can write an op order to get there. And that is the hardest op order you will ever write, because you're turning all those tools that you're so good at, that have been ingrained in you for your entire life, onto you, onto yourself. That's hard to do, but that's it. I mean, those are the things we talk about. So that well, there's one other thing beyond that goes along with that plan, and that is creating your network. Because you don't get a good, high-paying, highly fulfilling job just by sending your resume into job postings on LinkedIn and Indeed. You get it by the person that's the hiring manager knowing who you are. And that's why you need to build your network. You build a targeted network. I want to do this type of role in this industry, preferably with this company, or maybe it's a little broader and say not necessarily that company, but a company that has this kind of setup and this size and this role and these sort of things. And then I target that, and I target individuals in that to have a cup of coffee, to have a beer with them, so that I can learn who they are, how they got there, what are some jobs, what's going on in that company. Is that really what I want to do? Maybe they'll even just create a position for me because they like me and they see the opportunity for the business to be successful by having me as part of the team. But the only way any of that stuff works is people got to know you. They can't look at a piece of, or, a 2-page resume and say, oh, this guy's shit hot, let's get him in here. Got to know you.
Yeah, especially if you don't have the credentials or whatever they think they need that they're looking for to fulfill the job. That may not even be necessary.
Yeah. I was talking with a guy about that today, and that whole aspect of maybe the job posting has 5 requirements, and I meet 4 of those 5 requirements. Well, if you send your resume in, it's not going to make it past the keyword filter. Very likely it won't. But if somebody knows you in that company and knows that, yeah, you may not have a certification in XYZ, but you can do it, or just as much you can figure out how to do it, then yeah, that's a completely different story, right? Because they are bypassing the automatic keyword filter. It's not even AI. It's not AI. This shit's been around for years. It's a keyword filter. It's just looking for master's degree, engineering, you name it, CMMC, whatever, Cobra, or whatever, coding. It's just looking for keywords. And if those keywords aren't on your resume, it stops. Never goes to anybody that can make a decision.
Well, and the interesting thing to me is like, how many times do people lie on that? Like it tells you the answers, right? It tells you the answers to the test. So how many people just fill out the answer to the test, and then the companies never even circle back to make sure they're okay. And you hired the wrong guy anyways, because you wanted 5 credentials. They said they had them, but really they only had 3, but you never did your due diligence to check because you just think everybody's honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, that rolls right back to this age-old process of submitting your resume, whether you're freaking mailing it in, email, LinkedIn, whatever, you shouldn't. Don't get me wrong. You still need to do that. Everybody needs to do that. I have a friend of mine that I served with in group that was out. Wasn't really out of work, but the role he was in and the company, and he kind of like hit the ceiling. And he's like, I need to find something else. He started looking in April. Just started onboarding this week, and he told me he did 189 applications and worked with a placement firm. Now he was hitting it. That's awesome. But that shows you the amount of work that comes in. He has landed a good, very great fit. Drawing a blank on what word to use, but it's a role that he will love and thrive in and get compensated very well for. So it was worth it. But that's a long, long journey. April, May, here we are, end of June, getting to that point. And all those applications and working with an agency and all that sort of stuff. It takes a lot of work. Because you need to do that. You need to be doing the applications and you need to be meeting with people. It's a full-time gig. You need to be building that network. It's not just, here's my one resume. I've done this one resume and I send it to everybody. The infamous LinkedIn is horrific for this now because you go into LinkedIn and see a job post. Submit. I feel sorry for anybody that's doing that because I've heard horror stories of like 1,000, submittals for one role in a company via LinkedIn because, you're kind of like, well, why not? Click. It's the lottery. It's kind of like, well, I can't win the lottery if I don't buy a lottery ticket. Okay, well, it's not a good retirement plan, but it is a plan. So.
Well, and even at that, the why not? Like how many people are just applying for a job that they don't care about the purpose or the vision of the company, like you were saying before?
Yeah.
That's not good. You're already set up for failure because it's not even something you believe in.
Yeah.
It kind of goes to the other point in your article was indecision is a decision. Just because we're not doing something, it doesn't count as zero. That counts as something. It's just not the right thing. It's nothing, but nothing is still a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tweak that just a little bit because indecision is bad. That is a decision to be indecisive, but deciding not to decide is a decision. As the band Rush says, you still have made a choice. There's a difference. Indecision kills people. Indecision killed that groundhog, that prairie dog, right? And as many varmints that you see out on the road are killed by indecision because they go, oh.
I've killed many of them. I'm a truck driver. I've seen the indecision firsthand. I saw it this morning.
Oh yeah. That's what I mean. It's like that kills you. And that truly is the only bad decision you can make is to be indecisive. You can decide not to decide. You can decide go this way. You can decide go that way. And all of those you do with confidence and vigor and move out smartly. But when you're indecisive, you're holding. You're like, I don't know. I hope something happens. I hope it's good. Yeah.
Well, Otis, so hopefully guys can reach out to commit before they get out, and maybe they'll get connected with you or somebody else. And like you said,
by the way, we have a great lineup of coaches, civilians and veterans. So
yeah, so they can go to Commit Foundation, fill out the form, and then they'll get connected with one of the Veteran Service Counselors, right? So he said VSC.
No, DVS, Director of Veteran Services.
That's what it is. Yeah, Director for Veteran. Yeah. And then they'll get connected with one of you. And I really want to thank you for coming on today and just talking about leadership, talking about what you do. I thank you for what you do, and I'm sure it has a huge, tremendous impact on men. And do you have anything else you wanted to say in closing?
No, Ken, this has been great, man. I always appreciate the opportunity to share and hang out with you this evening and talk. If somebody hears this and it makes an impact, that's great. If somebody hears this and wants to learn more, then just shoot me a note. Find me on LinkedIn. Go to our website, 10X Your Team, or tribe-purpose.com. Either one of those, or LinkedIn. There's Dad is on LinkedIn, but that's Dr. Otis. Dad's a freaking rocket scientist, retired rocket scientist. He's on there. So there's only 2 Otis McGregors that I've ever found on LinkedIn. So I'm pretty easy to find. So, and if it's doctor, that's Dad. Dad will tell you, go talk to my son. So.
All right. Well, like we always say, Rangers lead the way.